Hi friends. I know no one wants to watch videos, but there's too much to say again, and I really need you to watch the video. So we have some deadlines that have passed that people have missed. We have a possible blizzard and being stuck for a long time, and we've got to still put on this event. So fun times for all of us all the way around. Let me try to get through this quickly. This is the advisor dashboard. You're fully aware of it. I'm going to show you a couple of things I want you to take a look at over the next day or two, okay? One of those is our district planning meeting agenda. If you scroll down far enough in there, you're going to run into your checklist for DLC, which is a week from Monday, February the 2nd. So this has your advisor checklist that reminds you of all the things that you should have been doing along the way. But amongst those things, make sure you have your bus, that you have a bus list, that you've got your school, the list of who's going, that if anyone is driving, that they have the parking pass. If you know where, make sure your bus knows where to drop off and where to park. Name tags. You have to make your own name tags. A lanyard is great. Put their name and their school on it at a minimum. You can put more. A lot of teachers like to go through and put their event and their event time on there just to make it easier. Students are required to have an ID if they're performing. That would be a great thing for you to have them put in their lanyard. A student ID is fine. A permit ID is fine. If you don't have a school ID, and we went over this at our planning meeting, but some of you may have forgotten, they have to have some form of ID. Typically, we would say like a letter from your school signed by the principal that also has a picture of their face on it. Understandably, we may have issues where you're not back in school before then, but you need to have something that designates who they are. So just let your kids know that. If you have freshmen who don't have an ID, like at Jackson, they all have a school ID, your school might not have that. If you get back and you can make them one, that's fine for us. But we do need to have them check in with some form of ID. Make sure they have money or probably TAP for lunch. You're supposed to bring your comprehensive consent forms. You need to bring a list of your students who will not be performing after 12:45 for the game show. You need to have those cut apart in a list and in an envelope. Remind your voting delegates about the election. Be sure the students have the link to the program, which is on the dashboard. Remind your students to look at their rubrics. I would suggest making a copy for them to look at on the bus. Remind them about the dress code. And then you guys have advisor assignments, which you don't know about until today. Well, you knew they were coming. They are linked on the dashboard. Make sure you look up your events. At a minimum, just read over them so that you're aware. If you're looking at the event list, it's nationals list, look at finals. Ours are like the finals there. You are assigned something to do, whether that's the workshop, whether that's in the grading room, whether that's some other activity. You will have a packet at districts that you will pick up. You will come pick up that packet and it will have what you need to do. You'll tell them who you are. You'll get your packet for your event. If you're assigned sales presentation, you're going to go get the sales presentation packet. If you're assigned whatever, you're going to go pick that up in that room. Also, you have to have a timekeeper. So make sure you have a timekeeper. That can be a student of yours who's not performing at all during that event, or who's not performing at all, or a freshman who just joined and they haven't had time to compete, but they just want to learn more. That's a great job for them. That sort of thing. Just remember you have to have that timekeeper the whole time. They can't leave early to go with friends to lunch. They can't leave early because they're going to an event. Like, they have to know they're blocked for that time. All right, also on this advisor agenda from back in our planning meeting, these were the things your students complained about. So if you would please look over them and then address these things with your students when you get there before they start the day. Make sure you read all of this stuff, okay? I give you a sample schedule. If you have students who are not in any performance events, there's still plenty of things for them to do. Now, we did decide this year, kind of executive decision, we are going to push the workshops more heavily right now. We are not going to have the play games room because there were 8 people who used it last year. We are not going to have a scavenger hunt or escape room activity. I know a lot of kids like that, but more than half the chapters didn't participate at all. And some people said, well, I didn't do the workshops because of that. We want them to attend the workshops, okay? So, back to the advisor dashboard. Here's your list of your competitive events by event. So if you want to see who your kids are up against, you can look at this by event and it's going to tell you who that is. You've got the one by school. You already have that one, but that's in there. You've got the program. This, you can give this link to your students if you want to. This is the program here. This is going to have everything going on for the day. They can click here for the performance schedule. Tells you what we're doing. So as a quick reminder, you need to have your students there early if they're in early bird events. And you know that if they are. Please try to arrive by 8 so you can get your students checked in for those. You're going to report those students at the UC Ballroom for prep or to check in for dress code. Everyone in a performance will check in at the ballroom for dress code. Then we go to the auditorium. That's the opening session. We hear the candidate, introduce the candidates, all of that. Students who are your voting delegates will stay for the election in academic auditorium. All other students will leave academic auditorium and go across the road. If they're competing within that next hour or so, they should probably go to the University Center and prepare. But don't check in until about 10 to 15 minutes before your event because we don't need everybody checking in when it's not their turn. At 10 o'clock, any students not competing for the next hour should go to Workshop SS, which is on the 3rd floor. That's the main floor of the University Center. SEMO is doing something. They have a panel with some of their people from business. So we really would like to have students go to that. It's only like 30 minutes and they will have door prizes and stuff. The second page of this is going to have information about the other 3 workshops offered. So 10:45 is Monsters at Work. That's some of our district officers. 11:30 is going to be from our national sponsor, the Alzheimer's Association. They have a thing called the Brain Game here, and they're going to talk about that. That's at 11:30. So if you have students who would rather eat an early lunch and then do the 11:30 workshop, or they perform super early, this 11:30 workshop is great. We do encourage you to send 2 people from your chapter to the 11:40 workshop, which is Pitch in a Pinch. That is a hands-on workshop that's conducted by our district officers, but we only have room for 30, so 2 students per school. If you're not going to send anybody, feel free to give your tickets to another school. I don't really care. We just want to keep it limited to 30. And then, of course, your students can eat at the University Center. There's places to spread out there to eat. I'm going to guess it's going to be pretty cold. They can also DoorDash and sit there somewhere and eat as well if they want to. There's a list of things here that are in the program. Not going to read it to you, but read it. After all the competitive events are over, all the advisors are going to head back to the auditorium. So you may still be running an event at this time at 12:45. If you're still running an event, keep running your event. Whatever you're in the middle of doing over there, keep doing that until it's done. Otherwise, you're going to go on over to the auditorium. It's helpful to have as many advisors over there as we can. Obviously, if you're a little late getting over there because you haven't had a chance to grab a bite to eat and do so. We will have stuff like little munchies for breakfast and lunch in the ballroom for advisors, judges, and district officers to partake in. At 12:45, though, is the game show. We've got people running that. At 12:50, if you have a student who is an officer now or gets elected to be an officer this next year, they're going to come to the ballroom, and we're going to go over taking their officer photo and doing the officer rehearsal. That'll technically be run by whoever wins the president, so that will be either Cape Central or Jackson, but that will be at 12:50 over at the ballroom. And then at 1:30 is when we hope to start the closing session. So at that point, you need to make sure your students are in proper footwear, no gum, take off their name tags once they're back in the auditorium. Again, no denim, no tennis shoes. Please, please, please make sure your students know this. Okay, we should be done by 3 o'clock. We usually can make that deadline. There's a list here of current officers and those who are running. These are kids who need to know about that 12:50 time period because they will be participating in that. Down here at the bottom is the campaign materials. If you have voting delegates that were assigned to do that for your chapter, they will be able to access all of the information here, click the videos, click the flyers, and they will stay in the auditorium to vote. They will report to the front for that. Here's a list of competitive events. Here's sort of the map to tell you where things are. Here's a QR code for your students to scan, and here's a bit.ly link. So you can give them everything you need to give them. Okay? Now, back to the dashboard. You were supposed to have completed the responsibilities sheet on this form by the 15th of January, and I have not very many schools. So take a minute to do that. We really need to know how many students you are planning to bring. I know that may change, but we need to be able to give catering a head count here in advance. So please fill this out, okay? There's the link again for the program. Here are your advisor assignments. When you click on this, it should tell you the events that you are assigned. Some of them, like Bless Cape Central's Heart, it looks like you have a ton of things, but you have some events that are back to back to back at the beginning, early bird. So you're just gonna, those are easy to run because they're in that pipe and drape area. Find your school on here and then see what it is that you're assigned to do. If you have questions about what the event's like, look up the event. Some of the events are sort of role play in nature, so your kids need to know that they need to act that way. So like I would suggest that you tell them when they come in to tell the judges, hi, I'm Tanya and Amanda from Jackson High School. This is our entrepreneurship team. We've received the information for the role play. Who will we be role playing with? Something like that, okay? And then you can be like, okay, timekeeper ready, judges ready, and then we'll begin. And then you'll be like, hi, we're da-da-da-da-da from the consulting entrepreneurship firm. I understand that you, whatever, have a question. Something like that. But like tell your kids to prep for that because otherwise sometimes they just make a presentation. And the other things that are presentations, obviously make your presentation. They're going to present from their devices. Could be an iPad, could be a computer, but from the device. We're not projecting anything. That is prohibited. So you have to present from a device. They're going to be in pipe and drape for all but 2 of the event rooms that we're running. That means they're all going to be in one big area with just fabric between them. You're going to hear other people speaking. You're going to hear other things happening. The kids struggle with that a little bit, but they need to be prepared for it. That's how it's done in the preliminaries at state as well. So anyway, this is your list of things where those are. They are not in time order. Sorry about that. They are just in order by the advisor assigned. Because there's prep times for some and start times for others, I just couldn't figure it out and wasn't going to spend any more time on it today. Okay, so that's your advisor assignments. That's on here. Again, share with your voting delegates the voting delegate thing. They also received an email today, and so did you, with that information. Some other things that I thought would be helpful for you. Share with your voting delegate, or not that, reminder sheet. This is something, and I know you might not see your kids, but you can maybe email it to them, that we make at Jackson, so I just made one for you. So you also have sort of a sample schedule. Feel free to make a copy of this, and you can use it for your own school. We put our performance times on this other page. If we're in school next week at all, our kids will get a paper copy of this Thursday or Friday. If we're not at all, they're just going to get the BandApp email with a link to the PDF, and they can pick it up that way. Remember to get timekeepers, so let your kids know what your events are. Sometimes we just get those on the bus. Sometimes we plan it ahead. Make sure you put your voting delegates and they know their schedule here. Remind your kids to go to the noon, or to the workshops. Oh, that isn't right on here. Our workshop times are different on here. I did not update that. So do make sure that you've got, I'll fix it by the time you read it, that the update will be in there by the time you read it. Anyway, so this has that whole sort of list of things, and then the reminders for them. Again, no denim, no tennis shoes. Bring money or a card for lunch. Make sure you have them in a name tag, and they must have ID and check in. Tell your kids to read over this stuff, and then, of course, fix your contact information and all that good jazz there. Here's a map of the UC. We're only at the UC and right across the road there at the Academic Auditorium. Here's the competitive event reminders for your kids who are performing, how long those are, what's allowed. You look this over yourself, and then I would recommend you share this with your students in those competitive events. Again, if you're riding a bus over, a good thing to hand out on the bus and have them look at, along with their event guidelines. And then lastly here is the slideshow pics. Please be sure they're in here, not in a folder. Name of the school, president, or name of the school and the activity. That's it. If they're not in here, your school's not featured in the slideshow, your president's not featured in the slideshow. You're going to fill out your president's name here. There's also a link to the slideshow at the bottom. Okay? That's pretty much it. I know it's 15 minutes. I'm very sorry, but there is a lot to talk about here. If you have additional questions, please email those questions to district15@missourifbla.org. Not our personal emails, our school, but the District 15 one. Okay? Good luck to you all. I appreciate your work. It takes all of us to put this thing on. Good luck this week. Stay warm.